Hey everyone. Thanks for clicking. My name is Nicholas. I'm 29 years old, and my family completely forgot I existed for 2 years, until they decided they needed $39,000 from me. Before I tell you about the moment I finally slammed the door on their toxicity for good, do me a favor and let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. It's always amazing to see how far these stories can reach. Okay, so let's start at the end, or what felt like the end. The air in my Denver apartment was crisp and cool. It was a Tuesday afternoon, sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, catching the dust motes dancing in the air. My golden retriever, Buddy, was asleep at my feet, his paws twitching as he chased squirrels in his dreams. For the first time in my life, I felt a sense of peace, a sense of home that I had built board by board entirely on my own. Then the doorbell rang. It wasn't the intercom from downstairs. It was the actual bell right outside my door on the 15th floor. That was strange. Only building staff could get up without being buzzed in, and they always called first. Buddy lifted his head, a low growl rumbling in his chest. I shushed him gently. "It's okay, boy." I looked through the peephole and my blood ran cold. The peace I'd felt just seconds before shattered into a million tiny pieces. Standing there, looking impatient and out of place against the modern gray hallway, were my mother, Eleanor, my father, Richard, and my older brother, Leo. My family. The family I hadn't seen in person in over 2 years. My hand froze on the doorknob. 1,000 questions screamed in my head. How did they get here? How did they even get in the building? My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of dread. I hadn't given them my new address. I'd made sure of that. Taking a deep, shaky breath, I opened the door. Silence. For a long moment, the three of them just stared, their eyes sweeping over me, then past me into the apartment. I saw my mother's gaze linger on the leather sofa, my father's on the large-screen TV, my brother's on the open-plan kitchen with its granite countertops. They weren't looking at me. They were appraising my life. "Nicholas," my mother finally said. Her voice wasn't warm. It wasn't the voice of a mother seeing her long-lost son. It was flat, businesslike. "Mom, Dad, Leo, what are you? How did you?" She waved a dismissive hand, stepping past me into the apartment as if she owned the place. My father and Leo followed, tracking dirt from their worn-out travel shoes onto my clean hardwood floors. "Your cousin Megan gave us the address. We had to come." Her eyes scanned the living room again, a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher. Envy? Resentment? In their depths. Then, she turned to face me, her expression hardening into a mask of grim determination. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't comment on the fact that I looked different, that I'd put on some healthy weight, that I finally looked happy. She went straight for the kill. "Leo is in trouble," she announced, her voice leaving no room for argument. "His business. There were complications. We need $39,000. I just stared, dumbfounded. The sheer audacity of it stole the air from my lungs. $39,000. Not hello. Not we missed you. Just a demand. I must have looked as shocked as I felt, because she pressed on, her gaze flicking towards the window that overlooked the Denver skyline. "You're doing well for yourself," she said, a bitter edge to her tone. "You could sell this condo to help your brother." And just like that, the world went quiet. Everything fell away except for those words, hanging in the air like a death sentence. Sell my home, the sanctuary I had built to escape them, the only place I had ever felt safe. All for him, always for him. That was the moment I knew this was the end of the line. But to understand how we got to that doorway, we have to go back. Back to a time when I still thought their love was something I could earn. 2 years earlier, I was back in Ohio, standing in a kitchen that was technically my parents' but had always felt like my workspace. The air was thick with the smell of roasting garlic and rosemary from the chicken I'd spent all afternoon preparing. It was a Sunday, which meant family dinner, a weekly ritual of forced togetherness where my only role was to be the caterer and the cleanup crew. My brother, Leo, was holding court in the living room. At 30, he was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. He'd just launched some vague online business, selling artisanal, ethically sourced something. It changed every week. This week it was coffee beans. His voice boomed through the house, full of self-importance. We're projecting 6 figures by the end of Q4. It's all about the brand, you know? Authenticity. I saw my mother, Eleanor, hanging on his every word, her face glowing with pride. My father, Richard, grunted his approval from his armchair. His eyes glued to the football game but his ears tuned to his firstborn's success story. My heart was beating a little faster than usual that day, but not from the kitchen heat. I had my own news. Big news. I'd been working as a junior clinical analyst for a healthcare firm for 3 years, busting my tail, working late, taking every extra project I could get. And it had finally paid off. I walked into the living room, wiping my hands on my apron, cleared my throat. Hey guys, I have something I wanted to share. Leo glanced at me for a split second before turning back to his audience. And the best part is, the overhead is practically zero. My mom patted his arm. Oh, that's wonderful, sweetie. I always knew you were a brilliant businessman. I tried again, a little louder this time. Excuse me? I just got some really good news about work. My dad shushed me without looking away from the screen. Quiet, Nick, it's 3rd and goal. I felt that familiar, sinking feeling in my gut. The feeling of being invisible. I was a ghost in my own family. I retreated to the kitchen and began carving the chicken. The sharp knife a poor substitute for the sharp words I wished I had the courage to say. During dinner, the pattern continued. I served everyone, refilled their drinks, and cleared their plates. Leo talked about his business. My mom talked about Leo's business. My dad talked about the game. Leo's 2 young sons, my nephews, were running wild, and my sister-in-law was glued to her phone, probably managing Leo's social media. Finally, I saw a lull in the conversation. It was now or never. So, I got a promotion, I said, the words feeling clumsy in my mouth. It's a senior analyst position. A big step up. My mom looked at me, a blank expression on her face. Oh, that's nice, dear. Can you pass the salt? I slid it down the table. There's more. I pressed on, my voice desperate. The position, it's at the head office. In Denver. I'm moving to Colorado. Silence. For a moment, I thought I'd finally gotten through. Then Leo laughed. Denver? What's in Denver? Good luck finding ethically sourced coffee out there, little brother. My dad grunted. That's a long drive. You'll have to get the oil changed in that old car of yours. And that was it. No congratulations. No questions about my new job or my new life. My entire future, a monumental shift in my existence, was reduced to a joke about coffee and a comment about car maintenance. The meal ended. I cleaned the kitchen alone, the sound of my family's laughter in the other room echoing in the hollow space in my chest. Later that week, I sent a message to the family group chat, thinking maybe they'd be more receptive in writing. Hey everyone, just confirming my move date is in 2 weeks. I'll be packing up this weekend if anyone wants to say goodbye. The only reply I got was from my mom. It was a picture of my nephews eating the leftover cake I had baked on Sunday. There was no text, just a picture. It was a clear message. This is what's important. Not you. I packed up my life in silence. No one came to help. No one called. I was leaving, and it felt less like a departure and more like a quiet disappearance. A ghost, finally fading away for good. The first month in Denver was a blur of cardboard boxes, navigating a new city, and trying to fill the echoing silence of my 1-bedroom apartment. I'd never lived alone before, and the quiet was both terrifying and liberating. At work, I threw myself into the new role. My boss, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Linda, seemed to appreciate my dedication. For the first time, I felt seen. I felt valued. But the ghost of my family still lingered. I'd call my mom every few days, leaving voicemails that were never returned. I'd text the group chat with pictures of the mountains, my new office, the first snowfall. Crickets. It was like I had fallen off the face of the earth. Then, one Saturday morning, my phone rang. It was my mother. My heart leaped. Finally. Nicholas. Her voice was brisk, urgent. I need you to come over. The gutters on the house are full of leaves, and your father's back is acting up again. And Leo and his wife want to go out tonight, so someone needs to watch the boys. I stood in my sunny Denver apartment, looking out at the Rocky Mountains, and I swear I could feel the gray, oppressive sky of Ohio closing in on me. She spoke as if I were still just down the street, waiting by the phone for my next assignment. My throat felt tight. Mom, I can't. What do you mean you can't? Her voice sharpened. Don't be difficult, Nicholas. It's a Saturday. What could you possibly be doing that's so important? I took a breath. This was it. The moment of truth. Mom, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. I moved. I'm in Denver. I told you I was moving. There was a long, dead silence on the other end of the line. I could picture her perfectly. Standing in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, her brow furrowed in genuine confusion, as if I'd just started speaking a foreign language. Denver? She finally sputtered. What on earth are you talking about? You can't have moved to Denver. I did, Mom. Almost a month ago. I told everyone at dinner. I sent messages. I called. Well, I don't remember any of that, she snapped, her confusion quickly turning to anger. It was my fault, of course. It was always my fault. How could you be so selfish? To just pack up and leave without a word? What were you thinking? Your family is here. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. My family, who hadn't noticed my absence for a solid month, was now accusing me of abandoning them. The years of being treated like a doormat, a convenience, a piece of furniture, all came rushing back. The anger, hot and sharp, finally burned through the fog of my ingrained obedience. No, I said, the word feeling powerful on my tongue. No, Mom, I'm not coming over to clean the gutters. I am building a life here. A life? She scoffed. Your life is here with your family. Leo might need some help with his inventory next week. And, no, I repeated, cutting her off. It was exhilarating. I have a new job, a demanding job, and I'm not going to be your on-call handyman and babysitter anymore. Her voice dropped to a cold, venomous whisper. I never thought you'd be this selfish after everything we've done for you. We gave you a roof over your head. I paid rent, I said quietly. Ever since I was 18. She hung up on me. I stood there, phone in my hand, shaking. My heart was pounding, but underneath the fear, a new feeling was blooming. It was fierce and bright. It was pride. For the first time in my 27 years, I had said no. I had drawn a line in the sand. I didn't know it then, but that single word was the first brick in the foundation of my new life. A life where my needs mattered. The weeks following that phone call were a strange mix of liberating silence and gnawing anxiety. The silence from my family was absolute. It was as if by saying no, I had finally completed my vanishing act. They hadn't just forgotten I'd moved. Now they were actively choosing to forget I existed. Part of me was relieved. The other part, the small, hopeful child inside me, felt the sting of that final rejection. The anxiety came from an unexpected source. My oldest friend, Sarah. We had been inseparable since kindergarten. She was the one person back in Ohio I thought I could count on. We texted almost every day, and I confided in her about everything. The disastrous phone call with my mom, my frustrations, my small victories at the new job. She was always sympathetic, always on my side, or so I thought. One evening, about 2 months after the move, we were on a video call. I was telling her about a hiking trail I'd discovered. She was listening, nodding along, but her eyes kept darting down to her phone. A message notification popped up on her screen, and for a split second, I saw the sender's name before she could hide it. Eleanor. My mom. My blood turned to ice. Who was that? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Oh, no one, she said quickly, a little too quickly. Just my aunt. But I had seen it. And suddenly 100 small, insignificant details clicked into place. The way Sarah knew things I hadn't told her yet about my nephews. The way she'd sometimes ask pointed questions about my salary or my apartment. Questions that sounded suspiciously like my mother's usual interrogations. My stomach churned. Sarah, I said, my voice low. Has my mother been contacting you? The color drained from her face. She couldn't meet my eyes. What? No, of course not. Why would she? Don't lie to me, I said, the words sharp. I saw her name on your phone. How long has this been going on? She finally broke. The tears started welling up. Nick, I'm so sorry. She called me right after you moved. She was so worried. She said you weren't answering her calls, that you just vanished. I didn't vanish, Sarah. I told them I was leaving. She just didn't listen. I know, but she can be very persuasive, Sarah whispered, as if that excused it. She just wanted to know if you were okay. She made me promise not to tell you. She said it would upset you. Upset me? The word was a pathetic understatement. I felt a profound sense of betrayal, deeper than anything my family had ever inflicted. They were predictable. This was a knife in the back from the one person I trusted. My mother, unable to control me directly, had turned my best friend into her spy. She'd been getting regular reports on my life, my finances, my feelings, all while giving me the silent treatment. It wasn't about concern. It was about information. It was about power. What did you tell her? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Sarah sobbed. Just that you were settling in, that your job was going well, that you bought a new couch. Every detail I had shared in confidence now felt tainted, used against me. I was a subject to be monitored, a puzzle to be solved from a distance. We're done, I said, the words feeling like ash in my mouth. I can't trust you anymore. I ended the call before she could respond. I blocked her number. Then I sat in the dark of my apartment, the silence now feeling less like freedom and more like a fortress. That betrayal taught me a valuable, painful lesson. The toxic roots of my family ran deeper than I could have imagined. To truly be free, I couldn't just leave a city. I had to build walls, and I had to build them high. The next 2 years were a period of reconstruction. I built my fortress, and I started to build a life inside it. The first and most important resident was Buddy. I found him at a local shelter, a goofy, gangly golden retriever mix with one floppy ear and eyes that held the wisdom of the universe. The moment I saw him, I knew. He came home with me that day, and my quiet apartment was suddenly filled with the happy chaos of a wagging tail, squeaky toys, and unconditional love. He didn't care about my job or my apartment. He just cared about me. It was a revelation. Work became a sanctuary. I wasn't just an analyst anymore. I was good at my job. Really good. I streamlined processes, identified new revenue streams, and my boss, Linda, started giving me more and more responsibility. My salary increased, and for the first time, I felt a sense of financial security that was entirely my own. It wasn't attached to my parents' home or their approval. I started a 401k, invested in some stocks. I was building a future. I made friends, too. Tentative at first, but real. People from work, neighbors in my building. We'd go hiking on weekends, try out new breweries, complain about the Denver traffic. It was normal. It was healthy. And then there was Chloe. I met her at the dog park. It was a crisp autumn day, the aspens turning a brilliant shade of gold. Buddy was enthusiastically trying to befriend a sleek, elegant husky who wanted nothing to do with him. I was apologizing to the husky's owner when I finally looked up and saw her. She had kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled, and a laugh that made you want to laugh along with her. "Don't worry about Daisy," she said, pointing to her husky. "She has a flair for the dramatic." Her name was Chloe. She was a freelance graphic designer, and she had moved to Denver a few years before me to escape, in her words, a small town with a small-minded family. There was an immediate spark of recognition between us. We didn't have to explain the complicated dance of family obligation and the desperate need for escape. We just got it. Our first date was coffee, which turned into a walk, which turned into dinner. We talked for hours. I told her about my family. Not everything, not yet, but enough. I told her about the invisibility, the constant feeling of being second best. She listened without judgment, her hand resting gently on mine across the table. Boundaries aren't selfish, Nick, she told me, her voice soft but firm. They're a form of self-respect. You're allowed to have them. It was like a light bulb went off in my head. I'd always viewed my no to my mother as an act of rebellion, something to feel guilty about. Chloe reframed it as an act of survival. Our relationship grew steadily, organically. It was built on mutual respect, shared laughter, and the quiet comfort of being with someone who saw you for exactly who you were. With her, I wasn't the backup son or the family handyman. I was just Nicholas, and that was more than enough. One day, we were looking at properties online, just for fun. And then, it wasn't for fun anymore. I found a place. A corner condo on the 15th floor with panoramic views of the mountains. It was more than I ever thought I could afford. But when I ran the numbers, I realized I could do it. It was a terrifying leap of faith. It was a statement. This was my home. This was my life. The day I signed the papers, I felt a deep, profound sense of accomplishment. I had done this, all of it, on my own. Life in the new condo was a dream. Chloe and I spent weekends painting walls, assembling furniture, and making the space our own. Buddy loved the big windows, where he could sunbathe and watch the world go by. For the first time since leaving Ohio, I felt like I could finally, truly, breathe. The silence from my family had become a comfortable background hum. 2 years had passed without a single phone call or text message. It was a silence I had come to cherish. Then my cousin Megan called. Megan was my mom's sister's daughter. We'd never been particularly close. She was a few years younger than me, obsessed with social media and appearances. I was surprised to hear from her, but she sounded bubbly and excited. Nikki, oh my God, I'm going to be in Denver for a long weekend with some girlfriends. We have to get together. The old, people-pleasing Nicholas wanted to make an excuse. He wanted to say he was busy, that work was crazy. But Chloe had been teaching me that I didn't need to lie to protect my peace. Still, a part of me felt a flicker of familial obligation. She was the first person from that side of my life to reach out in 2 years. Maybe this was a chance to build a bridge, however small. Yeah, sure, Megan. That sounds great, I heard myself say. She came over on a Saturday afternoon, alone. Her friends were off shopping, she said. The moment she stepped into the condo, her jaw dropped. Her perfectly glossed lips formed a silent, "Oh, my God," she breathed, her eyes wide as they scanned everything. Nikki, this place is insane. She walked through the living room, running her hand over the back of the sofa, trailing her fingers along the cool surface of the quartz countertop in the kitchen. This must have cost a fortune. I got a good deal, I said, feeling suddenly defensive. The entire visit was like an interrogation disguised as a friendly chat. What exactly is your job title again? How much is your bonus structure? Is this watch real? And all the while her phone was out. She was snapping pictures of everything. The view from the balcony, the wine fridge, the art I'd bought from a local gallery. Just for my design inspo board on Pinterest, she'd say with a tinkling laugh. You have such amazing taste. I felt a growing sense of unease. It didn't feel like admiration. It felt like she was collecting evidence. Chloe was out for the afternoon, walking Buddy and Daisy, and I found myself wishing she were there. She would have seen right through this. When she was about to leave, she gave me a tight hug. I am so proud of you, Nikki. You've done so well. Your mom and dad would just die if they saw this place. They'd be so happy for you. The words felt like a lie, but I just nodded numbly. As I closed the door behind her, I had a sinking feeling in my stomach. I couldn't shake the feeling that I hadn't just had a visitor. I'd just been scouted, and I was pretty sure I knew who had sent the scout. The comfortable silence I had cherished for 2 years suddenly felt fragile, like thin ice about to crack. That evening, Chloe and I were curled up on the couch, watching a movie. Buddy was snoring softly on the rug. It was a perfect, peaceful night. Then, Chloe's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her brow furrowing slightly. "Huh, that's weird," she said. "What is it?" I asked, my attention still on the screen. Your cousin Megan just tagged me in a photo on Instagram, she said, her tone puzzled. I didn't even know she followed me. A cold knot of dread formed in my stomach. I sat up. Let me see. She handed me the phone. My heart plummeted. It wasn't just one photo. It was a whole carousel post. The first picture was a selfie of Megan, smiling brightly, with my entire living room and the stunning mountain view perfectly framed behind her. The other photos were detailed shots of my apartment. The kitchen, the balcony, even a close-up of the bottle of scotch I kept on the bar cart. But it was the caption that made me feel sick. Spent the most amazing afternoon catching up with my super successful cousin Nicholas in his breathtaking Denver condo. Sparkles so incredibly proud of everything he's accomplished. Some people just know how to live the good life. Winking face, #family, #success, #Denver living, #highlife. And then I saw the tags. She had tagged me, of course. But she had also tagged my mother, my father, my brother Leo, my sister-in-law, and about a dozen other aunts, uncles, and cousins. It was a calculated, targeted strike. This wasn't an innocent post. This was a message. This was an invitation. Oh, Nick, Chloe whispered, seeing the look on my face. Before I could even process the violation, my phone, which had been silent on the coffee table for 2 years, lit up. A text message. From my mother. My hands were trembling as I picked it up. The message read, "That's a very nice apartment, Nicholas. We need to talk." And then it began. The floodgates didn't just open. They burst. A missed call from Leo. An email from my father with the subject line, "Family Matter." A friend request on Facebook from my sister-in-law. It was a coordinated, overwhelming assault. They had been waiting for a sign, for an opening. And Megan, with her carefully crafted post about my good life, had just handed it to them on a silver platter. The piece I had so carefully constructed was gone, shattered by the glow of a phone screen and a handful of carefully chosen hashtags. I felt like an animal caught in the headlights, frozen and exposed. They knew where I was. They had seen what I had. And now they were coming. The fortress I had built suddenly felt like it was made of glass. The silence was over. The storm was here. I spent the next hour pacing the length of my living room, my phone buzzing incessantly on the counter like a trapped hornet. My first instinct was pure panic. I wanted to sell the condo, change my name, and move to another country. The old Nicholas was screaming inside my head. Just give them what they want. Make it stop. Chloe watched me, her expression calm and steady. She waited for the initial wave of my panic to subside. Finally, she stood up, walked over to the counter, and silenced my phone. The sudden quiet was a relief. "Okay," she said softly, taking my hands and leading me to the sofa. "Let's breathe." We sat there for a minute, just breathing together. Her calm was an anchor in my storm. "They're going to ask for money," I said, the words tasting like poison. "That's what this is. It has to be." "Probably," she agreed, her voice gentle but direct. "So, the question is, what are you going to do?" "I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "A part of me feels guilty. I have all this and I don't even know what's going on with them, but it's probably not good if they're coming to me." Chloe squeezed my hand. "Nick, look at me. You didn't get all this by magic. You earned it. You worked for it. You built it from the ground up after they treated you like you were nothing. You don't owe them guilt. You don't owe them a single penny of your salary." Her words were like a splash of cold, clear water. She was right. The guilt was a phantom limb, an old habit from a life I no longer lived. "What do I even say to them?" I asked, feeling helpless. "They'll twist everything. My mom will cry. My dad will do his silent, disappointed thing. Leo will make it sound like I'm personally destroying his life." "You don't have to engage in that drama," she said. "You can be a rock. You can state your boundary and hold it. You don't need to justify, argue, defend, or explain. No is a complete sentence." We talked for over an hour. She didn't tell me what to do. Instead, she asked me questions. What did I want my life to look like in 5 years? Did that vision include funding my brother's failed businesses? Did it include sleepless nights worrying about my parents' manipulations? Did it include putting myself last again? With every no I said to her questions, I felt my resolve harden. She was helping me find my own voice, the one that had been buried under years of FOG, fear, obligation, and guilt. They don't get to just reappear and make demands, I said, the words feeling stronger, more certain. They gave up that right when they couldn't even be bothered to remember I had moved to a different state. Exactly, Chloe said, her eyes shining with pride. By the end of our conversation, the panic had receded, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. I wasn't the scared, invisible boy in the corner anymore. I was a man who had built his own world, and I would be damned if I let them burn it down. The next morning, the official declaration of war arrived. A text from my mother. It was chillingly simple. We are driving to Denver. We will be there Tuesday afternoon to talk. It wasn't a question. It wasn't a request. It was a summons. They were bringing the fight to my doorstep. The old me would have been a wreck. I would have called off work, cleaned the apartment obsessively, and spent 2 days sick with anxiety, rehearsing apologies for crimes I didn't commit. But as I read the text, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The conversation with Chloe had been a turning point. I wasn't a cornered animal anymore. I was a homeowner, about to defend his property from hostile invaders. I thought about how to respond. Should I tell them not to come? Should I get a lawyer involved? Should I lay out my terms over the phone to avoid the confrontation? Then I realized that would be playing the game on their terms. It would be preemptive, defensive. It would show fear. No, they wanted a face-to-face meeting. They would get one, but it would be on my turf. My rules. I took a screenshot of the text and sent it to Chloe with a single word, showtime. Her reply came back instantly. You've got this. I'll take Buddy and Daisy to the park for a few hours on Tuesday. This is your battle to win. Call me the second it's over. Her trust in me was a suit of armor. I spent the next 2 days living my life. I went to work. I had a great meeting about a new project, and my boss hinted at another promotion on the horizon. I went to the gym. I cooked dinner with Chloe. I walked Buddy by the river. With every normal, healthy action, I was reinforcing the reality of the life I had built. A life that was so much bigger and brighter than the small, dark world my family inhabited. I did, however, do one thing to prepare. I spent some time online, a few clicks on public records websites, a little digging on social media. I had a hunch, a gut feeling about what was really going on with Leo's business. It didn't take long to confirm my suspicions. The truth was far worse and far more pathetic than I had imagined. And it was the one weapon I knew they wouldn't see coming. Tuesday afternoon arrived, gray and overcast. I stood by my window watching the traffic below. I felt a familiar tremor of anxiety in my hands, but I clenched them into fists until it passed. I was ready. Right on schedule, the doorbell rang. I walked to the door, my footsteps echoing in the quiet apartment. I took one last look around at my home, my sanctuary. I thought of the scared boy who left Ohio 2 years ago. He was gone. A different man was about to open this door. I took a deep breath, turned the lock, and opened the door to face my past. Hello, I said, my voice even and calm. I was expecting you. They filed into my apartment like a tribunal, their faces grim and set. My mother, Eleanor, led the charge, her purse clutched like a weapon. My father, Richard, followed, his shoulders slumped, avoiding my eyes as always. And then came Leo, my golden boy brother, looking less golden and more tarnished. He had dark circles under his eyes and a nervous energy that he tried to mask with an air of arrogant entitlement. They didn't wait for an invitation, just arranged themselves in my living area. Mom took the main armchair, the one I usually sat in, claiming it as her throne. Dad and Leo sat on the expensive leather sofa, their bodies stiff and uncomfortable, like they were trespassing in a world they didn't belong to. I remained standing. It was a small thing, but it was important. I would not sit down. I would not make myself small for them. I was the master of this house. This is quite the place, Nicholas. My mother began, her voice dripping with a sickly sweet tone that set my teeth on edge. It was the voice she used right before she moved in for the kill. You've been busy. I have, I said, my tone neutral. We were so worried, she continued, placing a hand on her chest. When you didn't call for so long, we thought something terrible had happened. The lie was so bald-faced, so shameless, that I almost laughed. They weren't worried. They were ignorant. And now they were desperate. Leo, ever the impatient one, couldn't stand the pretense. Look, can we just cut the crap? He snapped, glaring at me. We didn't drive for 2 days to talk about your fancy apartment. My father shot him a warning look. Leo, be respectful. It was the first thing he'd said, his voice a low rumble. Respectful. Leo scoffed. He's sitting on a gold mine while his family is about to go under. There it was. The opening salvo. My mother jumped back in, playing the peacemaker, the long-suffering matriarch. What your brother is trying to say, Nicholas, is that we're in a difficult situation. A very difficult situation. You know how hard Leo has worked on his business. I just stared at him. His artisanal coffee bean business? Or was it the subscription box for dog toys? I lose track. Leo's face flushed with anger. It was a venture capital-backed tech startup, and it was a huge success until my business partner screwed me over. The story was flimsy, and we all knew it. My mother pressed on, her voice taking on a pleading, theatrical tone. He's lost everything, Nicholas. His savings. His wife is talking about divorce, about taking the kids. She's worried about their college fund. It's a complete nightmare. She let that hang in the air, the specter of a broken family, of my innocent nephew's suffering. This was her specialty, emotional blackmail. My father finally looked at me, his eyes full of a weary disappointment that he had perfected over decades. He's your brother, son. Family has a responsibility to help each other out. You remember what we taught you. They had me surrounded. The guilt tripper, the silent enforcer, and the entitled victim. It was their classic formation, the one that had worked on me my entire life. They were waiting for me to crack, to offer a solution, to ask, how much do you need? They watched me, their expressions a mixture of hope and demand. The air was thick with unspoken expectations. I let the silence stretch, holding their gazes one by one. I saw the desperation in my mother's eyes, the shame in my father's, the raw greed in my brother's. Finally, my mother delivered the punchline they had traveled 1,500 miles to deliver. Leo needs $39,000 to pay back his investors and avoid a lawsuit, she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, as if we were all in this together. We've done what we can, but we're tapped out. You are his only hope. She looked around my apartment again at the life I had built. It's a lot of money, she conceded, but you could sell this place, or take out a loan against it. For your family. The performance was over. The demand was on the table. The ball was in my court. They all leaned forward slightly, waiting for the inevitable cave-in. Waiting for the good son, the reliable Nicholas, to do his duty. I let their words hang in the air, a toxic cloud of manipulation. I looked at each of them, at the faces I once so desperately craved approval from, and I felt nothing. The fear was gone. The guilt was gone. All that was left was a profound, disappointing clarity. No, I said. The word was quiet, but it landed in the center of the room like a grenade. My mother blinked, as if she hadn't heard me correctly. What did you say? I said no. I repeated, my voice stronger this time. I will not be giving Leo a single dollar. And I am certainly not selling my home. Leo shot up from the couch. You selfish bastard. After everything we've done for you. What have you done for me, Leo? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. What has any of you done for me? You didn't notice I was gone for a month. You haven't spoken to me in 2 years. You aren't family. You are strangers who share some of my DNA. And you have shown up at my door uninvited to make a demand. My mother gasped, clutching her chest in a performance of pure melodrama. Nicholas, how can you be so cold? This is your brother's life we're talking about. He could face a lawsuit, maybe even go to jail. I didn't become cold, I said, the words clear and sharp. I became clear, and then I played my trump card. The one piece of information I knew they thought I didn't have. Let's stop the theatrics, I said, walking over to my desk and picking up a single sheet of paper I'd printed out the day before. There is no venture capital-backed tech startup. There is no treacherous business partner. There isn't even a business. I let my gaze settle on my father. There's just Leo spending your money, and you, Dad, taking out a second mortgage on the house to fund his fantasies. And you, Mom, enabling all of it. The color drained from their faces. The shock was absolute. This was not in their script. How did you know that? My father stammered, his voice a hoarse whisper. It's all a matter of public record, I said, holding up the paper. It was a copy of the new mortgage filing. You're the ones about to lose everything. This isn't about saving Leo. This is about saving yourselves. You need $39,000 to cover the balloon payment you can't afford. The truth, raw and ugly, was finally out in the open. The carefully constructed narrative of Leo the victim and Nicholas the savior collapsed into a pile of pathetic lies. My mother started to sob, but for the first time, her tears had no effect on me. They were just water. Just then, as if on cue, my phone rang. I glanced at the caller ID. It was my boss, Linda. I almost ignored it, but then decided it was the perfect punctuation mark to this entire farce. I answered, putting it on speaker. Hi, Linda. I'm with some family right now. Can I call you back? This will only take a second, Nicholas. Her cheerful voice filled the silent room. The board just approved the quarterly bonuses. Yours is a big one thanks to that new analytics model you built. And they also greenlit your promotion to senior manager, effective immediately. Congratulations. You've more than earned it. I could feel my family's eyes burning into me. The words, bonus, promotion, senior manager, were like salt in their self-inflicted wounds. That's fantastic news, Linda, I said calmly. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. I hung up and looked at them. Their faces were a grotesque mural of shock, envy, and pure, undiluted hatred. I had everything they wanted. Success, money, respect. And I had gotten it all with zero help from them. I think this conversation is over, I said, walking to the door and opening it. You know the way out. My father and Leo stood up, defeated. But my mother, in one last, desperate act of spite, turned to me, her face twisted in a snarl. You will regret this, Nicholas. When you're all alone in this big, empty apartment with your money, you will remember this day and you will be sorry. No, Mom, I said, looking her dead in the eye. I'm not alone, and I won't be sorry. The door to my home is now closed to you. But the door to a real relationship, one built on respect and not on transactions, will always be open, should you ever decide to walk through it. But my bank account, that is closed to you, forever. They walked out without another word. I shut the door behind them, the solid click of the lock echoing in the apartment. And in that moment, I didn't feel sadness or loss. I felt the exhilarating, terrifying, and beautiful thrill of absolute freedom. This is the moment that changed everything, the moment I finally took back control of my own life. Thank you for staying with me to this point. You're amazing. Please do me a favor and like this video, and comment the number 1 down below so I know you made it here with me. It not only helps more people find this story, but it also lets me know that my experiences mean something to someone out there. Your support is the biggest motivation for me to continue sharing the rest of this journey. The moment the door closed, the adrenaline that had been coursing through my veins vanished, leaving me feeling hollowed out and shaky. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The silence they left behind was immense, a vacuum where a family used to be, or where the idea of a family used to be. I walked on unsteady legs to the living room and sank onto the couch. The cushions were still indented from where my father and Leo had sat, monuments to a battle that had just been fought and won in my own home. Buddy must have sensed my turmoil, because he trotted over and rested his heavy head on my lap, his brown eyes full of concern. I buried my face in his soft fur, and for the first time, I let myself feel the grief. It wasn't grief for them, not really. It was grief for the family I never had. The supportive parents, the brother who was a friend. I was mourning a fantasy. Then my phone, which I'd left on the counter, began to buzz, and buzz, and buzz. It was a relentless assault. I knew who it was. I walked over and looked at the screen. A barrage of texts. From my mother. How could you do this to your own family? From my mother. You have been poisoned by that city and that woman. From my mother. I hope you're happy. We're going to be homeless because of you. From my mother. Don't you ever call me again. You are no son of mine. Then, a message from Leo. You think you're so much better than us. You're nothing. You always were nothing. And another. I'll get the money somewhere else. I don't need you. But when Dad's health fails from all the stress, that's on you. The threats, the guilt-tripping, the emotional venom. It was all so predictable. But this time it had no power. The words were just pixels on a screen. They couldn't hurt me anymore. I read each one, not with pain, but with a detached sense of validation. This was who they were. This was the toxicity I had escaped. I calmly blocked each of their numbers. Mom, Dad, Leo. One by one, I severed the digital tethers that connected us. Then I called Chloe. She picked up on the first ring. Nick, are you okay? What happened? I couldn't form the words. All that came out was a choked sob, a sound of profound release. I'm on my way, she said, her voice full of a warmth and concern that my own mother had never once shown me. She arrived 15 minutes later, her arms full of takeout containers from our favorite Thai restaurant. She didn't press me for details. She just put the food on the table, hugged me tightly, and let me talk when I was ready. As I recounted the entire ugly scene, she listened, her expression shifting from anger on my behalf to fierce pride. You did it, Nick, she said, her hand covering mine. You stood in the heart of the storm and you didn't bend. That night, for the first time, I didn't feel like a man who had lost his family. I felt like a man who had finally, truly, found his home. A few days passed. The silence that followed the blocking of my family's numbers was deep and profound. It was a true silence this time, not an ignorant one. It was a silence I had chosen, a boundary I had enforced. It was peace. Then, one evening, I got a call from an unknown number with an Ohio area code. My immediate instinct was to ignore it. I assumed it was one of them trying to break through my defenses with a burner phone. But something made me hesitate. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, a notification popped up. The caller had left a message. With a sense of trepidation, I played it. A gruff, familiar voice filled my ear. Nicholas, it's your Aunt Carol. My Aunt Carol was my mother's younger sister. She was a woman of few words, known for her sharp tongue and no-nonsense attitude. At family gatherings, she was usually in a corner, nursing a drink and observing everyone with a cynical eye. We'd never been close. I always felt like she disapproved of me, just like everyone else. I heard what happened. Her voice on the message continued, sounding uncharacteristically hesitant. Your mother called me, spitting fire, went on and on about how you'd betrayed the family. I listened to her rant for about 10 minutes, and then I hung up. There was a pause. I could hear her take a deep breath. Look, kid, I'm not good at this sentimental crap, but I just wanted to say, good for you. It's about damn time someone in this family stood up to them. What they did to you, what they've always done to you, was never right. I saw it. I never said anything. And I'm sorry for that. I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, completely stunned. Your mother, she went on, her voice full of a weary resignation. She and your father, they made their bed with Leo a long time ago. They poured every bit of hope, every dollar, into that boy, and he's been a black hole his whole life. They were never going to see you, kid. Not really. Because seeing your success, would mean they'd have to admit they backed the wrong horse. Another pause. Anyway, that's all. Just wanted you to know that not everyone in this family thinks you're the bad guy. You did the right thing. Take care of yourself. The message ended. I played it again just to make sure I hadn't imagined it. An apology. Validation. From the most unexpected corner of my family. It was a crack of light in the darkness. Aunt Carol's message was a gift. Told me I wasn't crazy. It told me the dynamic I had suffered under was real, and it was seen by others. It didn't fix the past, but it made the present feel a little less lonely. It was a quiet confirmation that by choosing myself, I had, in fact, done the right thing. Spring in Denver is a revelation. After a long winter, the city comes alive with vibrant color and the promise of new beginnings. 6 months after what I had come to think of as the summit, my life felt a lot like that Denver spring. Everything was new. Chloe and I had fallen into a beautiful rhythm. Our lives were intertwined in the easy, comfortable way of people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. We adopted Daisy after Chloe's landlord changed the building's pet policy, and our condo became a chaotic, joyful home filled with the sound of 2 dogs playing and 2 people laughing. My promotion at work had been fantastic. The new role was challenging, the team I managed was great, and the increased salary made life significantly less stressful. I was maxing out my 401k and had even started looking into real estate investment with a financial advisor. I was building a future Chloe and I could share, a future built on stability and smart decisions, not on crisis and chaos. I was in regular contact with Aunt Carol. We'd talk on the phone every couple of weeks. She was gruff and hilarious, telling me stories about the family drama from a safe distance. She never asked for anything. She just seemed to enjoy having someone sane to talk to. It was the healthiest family relationship I'd ever had. One afternoon, I came home from work to find a letter in my mailbox with unfamiliar, looping handwriting. The return address was from a town in Ohio, but not my hometown. I opened it with a sense of curiosity. It was from my cousin, Megan. My first instinct was to throw it away. She was the one who had started this whole mess with her Instagram post. But I was in a different place now. I was secure. I was calm. I decided to read it. The letter was 5 pages long. It was a rambling, tear-stained confession. She wrote about how she had always been jealous of me. When we were kids, it was because I was smart. As adults, it was because I had gotten out. She admitted that her trip to Denver wasn't a coincidence. My mother had been calling her for months, complaining that she had no idea what was going on with me. Megan had offered to be her scout. When I saw your apartment, she wrote, I couldn't stand it. It wasn't fair. My husband and I are struggling, we're up to our eyeballs in debt from my student loans, and there you were, living this perfect life, posting those pictures. It was a petty, horrible thing to do. I wanted to hurt you because I was hurting. I wanted to bring you back down to the family's level of chaos, so I wouldn't feel so alone in my own mess. She went on to say that after my mother had called her, screaming about how I had refused to help, Megan had felt a profound sense of shame. She realized she had been a pawn in my mother's game, and that she had betrayed me for nothing. I am so sorry, Nicholas, the letter concluded. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know the truth. I hope you have a happy life. You deserve it. I folded the letter and sat with it for a long time. I didn't feel anger. I just felt a wave of sadness for her, for the whole broken system she was still trapped in. I wouldn't be writing her back, not anytime soon. But in that moment, I let go of the resentment I held for her. She was just another casualty of the family's toxicity. And I was one of the lucky ones who had managed to escape. A few more months passed. Summer was in full swing. Chloe and I were planning a trip to Italy, something I'd only ever dreamed of. Life was good. It was stable. The drama of my family felt like a story from another lifetime. One evening, my phone rang. It was an unblocked Ohio number. Not my parents, not Leo. My heart didn't even pound. I just looked at it with a detached curiosity. I decided to answer. Hello. There was a hesitant silence on the other end. Then, a voice I recognized, but it sounded different, smaller, friendlier. Nicholas, It was my mother. I didn't say anything. I just waited. Nicholas, please don't hang up, she said, her voice cracking. I know I don't have any right to ask you for anything, but I had to call. I still didn't speak. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. She took a shaky breath. We sold the house, she said quietly. We had to. We were going to lose it anyway. We moved into a small rental apartment an hour away. I listened, my face impassive. These were just facts. Consequences. Leo, he and his wife are getting a divorce, she continued, her voice thick with unshed tears. She's got custody of the boys. He had to declare bankruptcy. He's working at a hardware store now, trying to make ends meet. The image was so jarring, my arrogant golden boy brother stocking shelves, that it barely seemed real. The empire had fallen. The house of cards, built on lies and entitlement, had finally collapsed under its own weight. I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty, she said, and for the first time, I think she actually meant it. I'm telling you this because we were wrong. I was wrong. The words I had waited my entire life to hear. And now that they were here, they didn't feel triumphant. They just felt sad. I was so obsessed with making sure Leo was a success, she whispered, the words tumbling out in a rush of long overdue confession. I thought if he succeeded, it meant I had succeeded as a mother. I was so blind. I poured everything into him and I didn't see you. I didn't see this wonderful, capable, kind man you were becoming. I just saw a backup plan. And that's a monstrous way for a mother to see her child. Tears were streaming down her face now. I could hear them. I am so sorry, Nicholas, for everything, for not listening, for not seeing you, for showing up at your door and making that horrible demand. I am so sorry. I finally spoke, my voice hoarse. Why are you telling me this now, Mom? Because I've lost everything, she said with brutal honesty. The house, the family I thought I had, and my son. I lost you a long time before you ever moved to Denver. I just didn't realize it until I had nothing left to look at but the truth. A long silence stretched between Ohio and Colorado. In that silence, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet. It was too soon for that. But the anger, the hard, protective shell I had built around my heart, began to soften just a little. Thank you for saying that, Mom, I said, and the words were true. I appreciate the apology. Can we see you? She asked, her voice small and full of a hope she didn't deserve but couldn't help but feel. I took a deep breath, looking out my window at the mountains, at the life I had built. My life, my peace. I don't know, I said honestly. I need time, a lot of time. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. It was a boundary, but it wasn't a wall. It was the beginning of a possibility, one that would exist entirely on my terms. For the first time, I was the one in control, and that was all I needed. Tonight, I'm sitting on my balcony. The Denver skyline is glittering against the deep purple of the twilight sky. Chloe is inside, humming along to some indie playlist while she sketches in her notebook. Buddy and Daisy are asleep at her feet. The air is cool and clean. It's been almost a year since my family showed up at my door. Feels like a decade. The man who answered that door, trembling with a mixture of fear and rage, feels like a stranger to me now. My mother has tried to call a few more times. We've had a couple of short, stilted conversations. They are awkward and full of unspoken words. She tells me about her new part-time job as a cashier. She tells me my dad is quiet, that he reads the paper a lot. She doesn't ask for anything. She just talks. I mostly listen. I don't know where or if these conversations will lead anywhere. And for the first time in my life, I'm okay with not knowing. My happiness is no longer tied to their approval or their redemption. My journey wasn't about teaching them a lesson. It was about teaching myself one. That my worth isn't determined by how useful I am to other people. That love isn't something you have to earn through endless servitude. And that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from the people who are supposed to love you the most. Family, I've learned, isn't always about the blood you share. It's about the people who show up, the people who see you, the people who celebrate your victories and hold your hand through your fears. It's my Aunt Carol's gruff voice on the phone. It's Chloe's easy laughter. It's the loyal, heavy weight of a dog's head on my lap. This is my family. The one I chose. The one I built. I take a deep breath, and the air fills my lungs. Feels different now. For my entire life, I feel like I've been holding my breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for the next demand, the next disappointment. But up here, surrounded by the quiet hum of the city and the warmth of the life I've created, I can finally, truly, breathe. I'm not holding my breath anymore. I'm free. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it resonated with you in some way. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose your own peace over a toxic family dynamic? I'd be honored if you'd share your own experiences in the comments below. And please don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories. Truly means the world to me.